This session, we have one panelist today, and his name is Jon Jones, and I will introduce each of us slightly more in a moment or two. Now that I got my glasses off, I can see you.
I'm good.
One more note I'm
As far as I know, it's running.
We please ask that you turn off or silence all electronic devices. So I just turned this off like I was told. Okay.
Guys like you make a technician really nuts, you know that?
That wasn't meant for the tape.
It's on.
Oh, on that one. So this is on smoothness, smooth dancing, what it's all about and all that. First of all, I just did, and I'm going to do it again, our panel of Jon Jones from Texas, Arlington, Texas. Let's have a hand for Jon. Save the big one for the end. And my name is Beck, and I'm from Chilmark, Massachusetts. Thank you. Jon, as only one panelist, I'm actually panelist as well as moderator. And before the session, well before, Jon and I flipped a coin to see who goes first, and Jon won, and he decided that I would go first.
Can I turn on all the lights?
Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody leave them and turn them off on them.
Turn that one off. It's in our eyes, but we can live with it. So as moderator, I decided we'd flip a coin again. Jon won, and so not only is he going second, he has the option of adding things in the first half while I talk too. Actually, we've agreed to work together, and if he has something to add, he's more than welcome to. I'm going to be doing a bit of yakking. Jon will, and then we will take questions later, and if there's some real urgent questions during the talk, at least my part, feel free to throw them in. I will either answer them, tell you that it's something coming in the logical progression and I'll put it off for a minute, or tell you I have no idea, maybe Jon knows the answer. Anyway, so we're talking about smooth dancing. The first question is, what is smooth dancing? People talk about wind in your face, seeing a kaleidoscope of movements, seeing it, and it's hard to tell where one call starts and the other ends because things flow. I was thinking of the best way to mention this, and I thought would be not on mic, but on camera. So watch this for a moment and see if it makes any sense. There's two kinds of... I know that, but I need both hands for this. I don't know if this will work with the mic, but...
You turned it off.
And then I turned it back on again.
Oh, you did.
Hello? Yeah. No feedback, it's nice. Pay attention to this two demonstrations and tell me what you think. This is the first one. This is the second one. If those were dancers, which one would you call smooth dancing, and which one would you call wanting the caller to learn a little bit more about smooth dancing? Let's see a show of hands for first demonstration. I just want to make sure you were really there with me. Good. I know years and years ago I'd hear people talking about smooth dancing and I'd think about body flow. And I think a lot of people think about body flow. But over the years I've learned that smooth dancing is much, much more than just body flow. In order to have the dancers moving smoothly through this dance, comfortably, etc., there are a lot of things involved in it. And I'm jumping ahead of myself. First I want to ask, why do we care about smooth dancing? Smooth dancing, compared to awkward dancing, is less tiring, is more fun, is easier to get through difficult material because your body's just taking you in the right direction from the previous call. There are exceptions. There are times that people are doing gimmicks, workshopping things, and even some challenge calling to get through more difficult material. But in general, smooth dancing is desirable. The way I like to think of it is the dancers are going to have more fun, and if they have more fun, they're going to like me better. And I'm always trying to do that. Anyway, smooth dancing is compiled of many components. Body flow is one. Timing is a big one. Overflow is a big one. Hand availability, phrasing, tempo of your music, dancer ability, difficulty of the material, perceived effect of the music, and what that does on the smooth dancing. And there's one other that Jon mentioned, he'll tell you about, because I can't remember what it was, but it was a good one. And in order for your dancing to be smooth, all those things have to be correct. If you screw up on timing, you're going to get my second demonstration. If you screw up on body flow, hand availability, call a call that the dancers don't know, you're going to get a hiccup in the movement. Now, one of the things that made it difficult for me to prepare for this presentation is I could do a full presentation on each one of those things, and I'm not sure quite how to curb it down to just giving you the essentials of it. But I'll touch briefly on it, and if there's more time at the end, we can go into more depth on some of these. Let me jump to the very end. And we're trying to convince you here that smooth dancing is a worthwhile thing, and what the components are, there are many of them. If you know this and understand it, and want to improve your presentation so the dancing is smoother, first of all, you have to recognize when your dancers are not dancing smoothly, as you did with my silly hands. One great way to do that, and we don't have the option at this point here, but is to video a tape, a dance that you've called, or look at somebody else's. Turn the volume down so you're not influenced by what the calls are or what's going on. And just watch the dancers and see if they're flowing smoothly from one call to the next. In fact, there's a good possibility that if everything is right, you won't even be able to see where one call starts and the next one doesn't. And the next one, where one ends and the next one starts. Things just flow smoothly. When you see something that's a hesitation, a hiccup, a jerkiness in what's going on there, then you know you've got a problem with smoothness. That's the first step, is recognizing it. The next step is trying to figure out, what did I do wrong? And again, it's easier to see on a video, but you should practice on watching your own dancers as you're calling. When there's a hiccup, you have to figure out, did I screw up on body flow? Did I screw up on timing? Did I call something the dancers don't know? Is it a full moon out? Is the floor too slippery? All these things are part of it. And once you isolate what the problem is, then you go back, try and fix that problem, call something similar, hope that's smoothed out, and then notice the smaller hiccup and try to figure out what that one is. And that's a big part of the problem, of the difficulty of doing it, is there's so many things that can cause these hiccups. And to correct them, one, you gotta isolate it, two, you've gotta understand what each of these things are, and then you've gotta work at fixing it. And I'm amazed Jon hasn't interrupted yet. Let me look at some of these components without doing a full presentation on them. Full body, I was reading body flow. Body flow is an interesting thing. We think of body flow as a sequence of calls that don't follow comfortably from the previous one. There are some calls that have poor body flow built into them. It's just going to be a hiccup no matter what you call. At A1, my favorite problem call is swap around. I remember the first time I was dancing that Red Bates way back when, and he was workshopping it. And I was standing here thinking, he's going to go swap around. I gotta go that way. He called swap around, and I didn't know what to do. It's a terrible call. My apologies to whomever wrote it. There are certain sequences that are awkward that we think of mostly. If we have a right-hand two-face line and do a bend the line flutter wheel, it doesn't flow well. We have a left-hand two-face line, making lemonade out of lemons, left-hand two-face line, bend the line, flutter wheel is fine. Or right-hand two-face line, bend the line, reverse flutter. But that other combination is one of your classic, not too good. Double pass through, centers in, bend the line. Another classic body flow glitch. There are some sequences that in my way of looking are borderline. You have to use your own judgment. Walk and dodge, partner trade. Most people use their judgment to use it. I try not to, but there's a body flow thing of the dodger moving here and then having to bounce over here. Borderline. Another one most people think is not good, but I think is borderline, is star through and veer to the left. And the reason I occasionally use it is I really need it to set something up that I need, and I'm willing to sacrifice a little body flow there.
Sacrifice the women.
Okay, I'll call star through, veer to the right, and sacrifice the men. What the heck? But again, it's not as gross as centers in bend the line. But one that people don't think about that often is body position and offsets. Let's see. If I got a right-hand two-face line and call tag the line, it's nice. If I have a left-handed two-face line and call tag the line, it's not nice, because there's an offset. They face the center and they're ready to pass right shoulders, and they have to move over to pass left shoulders. Another example, normally if you're in a double pass-through setup, you call center square through 3/4, Alaman left. Everybody accepts that. What would we do without it? But that's a left-handed move, and people think of do-si-do as a right-handed move, and if you call square through 3/4 do-si-do, people would get upset. But if you actually look at the dancers doing it, coming out of that third hand, if they move straight ahead, they have a right shoulder offset with the person in front of them. The right hand is not available, but the offset and flow is really good. You'll notice if they're going to do an Alaman left, they're all going to turn a little bit to the right before going to the left. But anyway, body position and offsets are interesting to work. Then there's a thing called overflow. Too much of a good thing. People going round and round and round. I personally think 360 degrees is okay. Some people don't. I'm willing to call swing through centers trade. Some places it's okay, some places it's not. But things like swing through, spin the top, followed by a centers trade or a fan the top is kind of a no-no. Couples circulate and wheel and deal is kind of a borderline thing. An interesting thing that A2 callers might not think about, and it took me a while before I realized it, but there's a call on the A2 list that has built-in overflow. It's called motivate. The center facing out goes once and a quarter, 360 plus 90, whatever that is. And when I teach motivate, I tell the person in that position, you're going to feel like you want to get out of that star earlier than you do it. In normal position, hang in there. It's a built-in problem. You have to just keep going. It helps to know that so that you can get the dancer to do it more effectively. Hand availability. next component. Many callers for many years have said, don't use the same hand twice. People that have thought about it years past say don't use a hand if it's not available. Sometimes the same hand is available more than once. Classic examples from an Alamandar, slip the clutch to a left Alamand. Somebody just said scoot back, right hand, right hand, right hand, and possibly a single hinge or a right-handed move right after that. It's okay to use the same hand twice. The hand is right there, you can work with it. But if it's not available, head square through, four hands, star through. It's great for the men, but the women have their left hand, which they need for the star through, still held by the guy behind them, so they can't get it free to do that. Now actually, if you watch dancers with the sound off, you will see them doing that smoothly, because the women have been so good at learning to compensate, because it's so frequently done incorrectly. But it's something to watch about. Again, hand availability. Another example of using the same hand twice. Box the gnat right and left through. Same hand, perfectly acceptable. Moving on to the next one, timing. This is a really big one, and if we have time, if John doesn't get to something similar, we might walk some people through and look at some different versions of timing. But timing basically means, what are we doing time-wise? I'm the moderator, I should know, I didn't even look. We started at 4 hours, we're doing okay. Timing basically means, in order to have the dancers moving smoothly from one call to the next, you have to tell them what call to call before they get there, what call to dance before they get there, so that they can move smoothly into it and do it. So they don't have to wait to see what the next call is you're calling. So they don't have to rush because they think you're not going to give them enough time to do the next call. And there's a lot of different forms of bad timing. Stop and go, stacking calls, clipping time, workshop timing, which is, they say, one of the exceptions, that if you're trying to get everybody through a call, or when you're teaching, that's an acceptable thing. CALLERLAB has done a lot of work coming up with timing charts. My personal opinion is I'm not sure why they wasted the time. I guess they're a good guideline. Again, this is a very personal thing, although I know others that agree. Timing charts, here I'm trying to do good timing. I've called a call. I want 2 seconds before the end of that, of the dancers doing that call, to give them the next call so they can move smoothly into the next call. And the same with the next. So what do? I call a call. I pull down a chart in my mind. That's this call. Timing is this many beats. Oh God, where did I start? I've gone 5 beats already. I got 3 more to go. I've got 1 more call to give them the next command. How many beats to the next command? It's just not practical to go into the timing charts and pull out that information, even if you've memorized it, and counting everything and knowing when to give it. In addition, they've tried to do the timing charts so that, square through from a squared set is different from square through after they head step ahead to, after they've done a right and left through in the middle. I asked one time a very prominent caller after being at his dance and taping it with his permission, how many beats does a square through take? And this is somebody known for good timing. And he said 6. And I said, what would you say if I told you 4.5? He said, what do you mean? And I said, I've counted many times where you've used it on the square, on the tape, and it's always just about 4.5. And his comment was, oh, don't tell anybody. So, grand square takes 32 beats. And that's the list that I've memorized.
Really? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
A grand square takes 32 beats? I've seen lots of dancers that could do it in 25.
Those are the dances that I try to tell it's a grand square, not a grand prix. I was afraid that I'd said 64 like I was talking to somebody yesterday. You had me worried. Where were we? So, timing is a big part of smooth dancing, and again, it's watching the dancers, looking for the slight hesitations, deciding whether they're worth it for the choreography you're delivering, see if they're rushing because you're calling the calls too soon. There's an awful lot to it. It takes time, no pun intended, to figure out how to handle it, to get a handle on it. But it's worth doing. Your dancers will love it. Yeah, I'll throw in a quick anecdote. One of the biggest compliments I've had was at a dance in New Hampshire once, when some old guy, older than the average old guy out there dancing, came up to me and said, "You know, I'm an old guy and I tend to have to sit out every other tip. Love dancing, but have to sit out every other tip." Oh, he came out and started saying, "Boy, do you call fast." Well, I generally call a tempo a little slower than most of the guys in the area did. But with close timing, it can feel fast because you don't have time to stand around and think. You are thinking while you're moving. And he said, "Boy, do you call fast." And I was starting to, oh God, how do I explain to him tempo? I was really slower and all this other stuff. And he continued saying, "But you know, I've danced every tip so far tonight and I haven't needed to sit down. I feel great." And that, I cherish that comment. Phrasing. Calling not only with the beat of the music, but the phrase of the music. Very, very difficult to do in our form of square dancing. But possible on occasion. You should be able to start a grand square with the phrase of the music and try and convince dancers to hear the music and dance with it. Very frequently, you can start a promenade or grand right and left with the phrase of the music. You know, you'll do an Alaman left your corner, come back and throw in an extra do-si-do before the grand right and left, just to give them the chance to dance with the music. And it does feel better, and it does feel smoother. Work with it on occasion, but know that it's pretty difficult to do all the time. Tempo is a big thing that I think I differ with a lot of people. We've done a lot of work on it, trying to figure out what's the correct tempo and what's not. Tempo being the beats of music per minute, or per second if you want to be sadistic about it. People used to say back before MP3s, "Oh, I set my turntable to 43 or to 47. That has nothing really to do with tempo. That's how fast the record's going around. That, combined with how the record was recorded, is tempo. But it's really how many beats per minute of music, not the speed of the record. A lot of people used to say when I started calling 130 beats per minute is a good square dance tempo. Some people still do. I know some people that call faster than that. I think most people are around, what, 124 to 126 now, John? I'm more likely 118 to 122. Calling it a slower tempo does several things. One is it allows dancers a split second more to think about what the next movement is that they're doing. And that makes them more successful. They don't realize what the difference. Calling it a slower tempo makes it sound more boring. So you have to compensate by being more excited when you do it at the slow tempo. You can do that with your presentation style. And it's worth it, working at that, to get them through more difficult material or to get them through the material. And Jim Mayo and I, many years ago, were discussing this in great detail, and we set up a workshop. We got four squares of pretty competent A1 dancers, even though we stuck the mainstream Baby Plus. And we got 6 callers, including he and myself, from the area. I rented a small hall near us that would hold us nicely. And we decided to do an attempt to see what was a good tempo for dancers. We made lots of different tests to do it. The callers we got, one was known to be calling at about 128. One was known to be calling at 118. All good callers, all popular with the local dancers, all presented at a different speed. And we had them do part of a tip each and had the dancer's reaction. We did a lot of things, and the one thing that I really remember most was, with my group before that, I said, I want you guys, I want to try something. I want you guys to do a head square through and relay the deucey. And I just said it like that, don't use it. And they walked through it. And I checked the tempo that their natural walking speed was. And I wish I could remember what it was, but it was something like 122. That's the normal speed that people walk. And we did a number of other things trying to figure out what the difference was, what effects different tempos made. My conclusion at the end of it was it's all perception and not so much tempo. Whether you perceive it as fast or perceive it as slow is a function of the music, your presentation, etc. And dancers amazingly can pretty much adjust from 118 to 128. But I still preach the lower tempos are better because you can get people more smoothly through things, and you have to compensate with the tone of your voice. And then there are obvious things like knowledge and ability. If the dancers don't know the calls or don't know them well enough, it's not going to be smooth dancing if they have to hesitate to figure out what they're doing. Or if it's a call that they don't know, it's not going to be smooth dancing. And of course, other things, enunciation, you got to be able to hear the caller, acoustics in the thing. And as I mentioned, slippery floor, full moon, etc., they all go into making it up. So just a quick summary, lots of different ingredients, all have to be correct for there to be good smooth dancing. Dancers will appreciate it and therefore appreciate you more if they are dancing smoothly. Your job to make it more smooth is to identify which of these components is a problem if you see hiccups, and correct that one, and then look for smaller hiccups and work on that. It's a big project. It's well worth doing. Thank you. John, would you like to talk a bit?
All right. Thank you, Don. Thank you to all of you for being here with us. Our handouts are back there on the chairs if everybody got one. I'm going to give Mike this microphone just in case we need it if we get different people holding up their hands about different things. But the article that I have here in my hand is 8 pages long, and you didn't get that much because the office won't print that many pages for a handout to go out to everybody. So what you got is reduced part of the handout. And the one that I have, if you notice, it has color in it. Guess who put this together? Deborah. She's very good at doing things of this nature and putting graphics in our syllabus that we have, and it's really neat and good to see. And well, I thought they were leaving. They're going back to get the handout. Said something then. So they're going to go out.
I'm not leaving, John.
All right. The first item that we talk about is timing. Who can tell me there are 3 parts to timing? Who can tell me the 3 parts of timing? No answer is wrong, so say something. What? Pre-cue, okay?
I would like to remind you that the session is being recorded.
Yeah, it's recorded,
And we
so we
would
gotta
like to
get
have the questions online.
everything on
As somebody reminded us this morning, the answers aren't much good if you don't know what the question is for people listening to the tape or even you reviewing it.
Everything is recorded. Okay. Yeah, the technical term for the timing is, the 3 parts of timing is the command time. How long does it take the caller to say the call? And the second part is lead time. How much lead time do you give the dancer to execute or to do the call? And the third part is execution time. How long does it take to do the call? As Don was talking about just a few minutes ago. I teach and have, ever since CALLERLAB adopted the timing chart, I teach our dancers to do every call in the number of beats that's on the timing chart. Now there's sometimes they're not able to quite get there. The age of our dancers is a big factor in our timing today. The young people that I taught when I was young, they could do everything just like it's supposed to be done, and most of them faster than what the timing chart had. But it's really neat to see a floor dancing in the proper timing. And it's difficult for me as a caller to call to a floor that each square has a different idea of what timing is about. It's extremely difficult to adjust the calling timing to fit what the dancers are doing if they're all doing something different. And then the first time I called at the festival in Sacramento, California, and they were under the leadership over there at that time of Lee Household. And I got up to call, and there were at least 100, maybe 150 squares on the floor. Back in the days when you could fill an auditorium up or a convention center. And I said, heads lead right and circle to a line. And they all moved over to the right at the same time. They circled forward halfway around. Every line broke at the same time. And I said, dance forward and back, and everyone went forward and back at the same time. And I said, star through, and every hand in the floor went up and down at the same time. And I said, wow, am I going to have fun with these people? With a timing like that, then you can set your timing as a caller, and it really fits together. I had a wonderful time with those people. Unfortunately, over the years, they let it get away. They quit stressing timing and teaching timing. And I went back, I had called that festival about 3 times, I think. And about the third time that I was there, the timing was not anywhere nearly as good as it was that first time I was there. And it was interesting to me, Melton Luttrell and I were calling that particular festival, and they had contacted us ahead of time and asked if we would come in and be ready early on Friday to do a timing and styling session for the folks in Sacramento. And I'm not picking on anybody, and I don't mean to be picking on anybody, but it was interesting to me that the best timing I had ever seen was there, and then later on they let it get away from it. And hopefully we can work on that and keep working on it. Tempo. Callers, what tempo to use? You heard Don say what he was talking about. He's somewhere between 18 and 22. What's the average? What are you doing? Let's get it on microphone. Somebody hold up your hand. Say, what time are you using? What tempo?
Nikki Hansley, Newark, California, 124 to 126.
124 to 126. Anybody use anything different? Are you somewhere in that neighborhood? Yes, right. Well,
I'm Paul Moore from Northern California, and I pay attention to the age group And so if I have a senior group, I may be down in the 122, 124 range. If I'm looking at, 4 kids, I may be up 130, 132.
Okay, I was a percussionist in school. I played drums for 13 years. And so I can, as soon as a piece of music starts, I can darn near tell you what the tempo is. And I'm very picky about tempo. Deborah and I have had some disagreements as far as tempo is concerned. And most of her music is set where it's around 130, 132 or something like that. And as soon as it starts, I said, slow it down. She said, what? Why? And so we've gotten a whole lot better about it and agreeing and a whole lot closer. But like I said, the age factor of our dancers is extremely important to us today. When we go to Europe, or even in Japan, that we were there in October, the timing was different. It was a bit faster. And we were able to adjust to it. Body position is very important. We talked about that just a little bit a while ago. And we're going to do some demo here in just real shortly. Hand availability, Don talked about. Head spur through forward, touch a quarter, scoot back, single hands. That's 3 right hands in a row. It's available. It's been accepted. The dancers have adjusted to it. Don talked about walking, dodge, and partner trade. We have trained the ladies. If you've ever done any round dancing, we do pivots out the kazoo. And walk and dodge, the lady dodges over and does a pivot and comes right back because she's anticipating a partner trade. Sometimes I call walk and dodge and dance forward and back, and you can't believe the looks I get. And I was challenged by a caller one time. He said, "You call that stupid stuff?" I said, "I don't consider it stupid. I consider it dancing. I can dance forward and back, and then I can go in any direction that I want to go because I've negated all body flow." I don't do that all the time. I try to do very few forward and backs while we're dancing. Anticipation. Encouraged anticipation. What's that mean to anybody? Anybody got an idea? No answer's wrong. Come on, come on, come on, come on.
You make people think.
Make people think, okay? Conditioned anticipation.
No.
Dance forward, 8 in the back you reel and pass through and bend the line. Dance forward, 8 in the back you reel and pass through and wheel and deal. Right. If you're going to do that, let the dancers do what they are anticipating to do. Mitch came up and gave me one just a moment ago. Mitch is over there, Pam. I'm going to let him explain it. Obnoxious anticipation. I love that word. What does it mean, Mitch?
Obnoxious anticipation. I'm Mitch Pengel, Broomfield, Colorado. Obnoxious anticipation is that dancer who thinks he's so cute that he's the head gent and he's going to go forward and back no matter what you call because he's the head gent and he's making that decision for you. Obnoxious anticipation.
He's going to make the caller change his timing in doing that.
And sadly, I dance with that guy on a real regular basis.
John?
Another one I think is, I do a drill with dancers and certainly other callers, and I say, if you have head square through 4, what's the next call? And they will usually come up with either a do-side-do or step to a wave. 90% of the time, something like that. If I call swing through, what's the next call? You only have 2 choices. What's it going to be? It's going to be boys run or a spin the top. Because they're so conditioned to hearing that sequence.
In teaching a class for a different group, and one of the experienced club dancers came up and said, "When are you going to teach swing through boys run?" It was all one call as far as they were concerned, because their caller had never called anything else but swing through boys run. So they learned it as swing through boys run. Unbelievable. That's why we finally have passed a law in Texas, open carry. Shoot that sucker next, get another one. Either straighten up or you're gone. And I'm going to go back to timing for just a minute. I was in another country, overseas country, and I have always prided myself in timing, and I believe that I do have very good timing. And it's nice when a dancer comes up to me and said, I really enjoyed your timing, it was good, it was smooth, it worked really well. And that's a great compliment to me. I was in this country doing a full weekend, and on the Friday night dance, about halfway through the dance, a large crowd, and I was down on the floor and walking around and saying hi while the round dance was going on, and a square of dancers came to me and they said, golly, we like your voice and we like your calling, but gee, you're fast. And I said, how do you mean? They said, they were from an isolated area. They were more than 100 miles to the next club. And they said, our caller, with everything he calls and everything he teaches us, he says, look and see where you are. Head square through 4. Check and see where you are. Do-sa-do to an ocean way. Now check and see where you are. Swing through. Now check your setup. After every call. Can you imagine dancing a whole dance that way? I can't. But they were trained to do that. So they got used to it. They'd do it. Step to an ocean wave and swing through. Check and see where you are. And they'd stop and get ready. We'd go again now. That's the way they were trained. And I said, well, stick with me, and before the weekend's over with, maybe you'll change your mind. Late Saturday night, they came up and they said, gosh, we had a good time. Your timing was really good. That was nice to have. Okay?
John, can I
jump in.
Interject something? Relative to the timing charts, many years ago I was doing a session probably with somebody else on timing. And one of the exercises I did was I got a square up and I threw a record on at whatever the appropriate tempo was and had the dancers dance to it. And everybody that was watching agreed that it was really smooth choreography and timed and everything worked nicely. Then I threw another one on and did the same thing, and they agreed again. The first one was a record by Jon Jones, and we went to the timing charts and wrote figure down and then wrote the timing down and added them up. And they came to 2 or 3 beats fewer beats than the timing chart said was appropriate. Then they added mine up, and they came to 2 or 3 beats more than the timing charts. And everybody was, oh my goodness, everybody agreed that they were both timed well. But it's a function of your body movement and how close you are before you do the right and left through and all the other stuff. It was just a contrast that the main thing I remember about it is poor Dick Ledger was sitting in the audience. Dick is a stickler on the timing charts.
Dick wrote the timing chart that we had.
I won't get into that anecdote, but he was a little upset at that demonstration. But everybody agreed. They were both timed beautifully, and comparing the timing charts, they were both off from what the figure should have been.
I wasn't in on that session, and I think Dick Ledger and John Caller were working that particular session, and a lot of callers came to me and they said, John, you cannot believe how they ripped your dance apart in that timing session in there a while ago. And I said, oh, okay, fine, I don't mind. Randy?
Randy Doherty. Right now I don't have a home. Anyway, mentored many newer callers, and a lot of times they have old records that they get, and they try to learn that record and what the figure was. And we were either closer timed back in those days, or we were a lot younger, or whatever. But if they try to do the singing call the way it was in today's market, at least where I'm at, they couldn't keep up at all.
It won't work.
Yeah, they just didn't. They didn't realize they needed to rewrite.
We have to totally adjust to it, and that's one of the things that we teach in caller school, to learn the timing and adjust it to the dancers that you're calling to. You simply have to. If it has a square through in it and do-si-do to an ocean way, and they can't get there in time, then skip the do-si-do.
Yeah.
Leave something out of it. Adjust it and make it work. And don't copy what's on that record because it may not work for you.
I work a lot in the retirement parks and so on, and my very first year, a lady come up to me and they kind of took on the attitude that Don has said, that if you're working with seniors or whatever, you might want to slow down your tempo. But this lady said, we're not dead.
Yeah.
Speed up a little.
We have to be careful of that. The song that Don was talking about, of mine that I recorded that they ripped apart, and I wrote it at a caller school that I was having locally there at home, and they were all callers that were dancing, and I made the timing fit to how they were dancing it. Heads promenade and go halfway around now, square through. Stay here in my arms, swing through now, scoot back. Ladies, you trade, all eight circulate and swing and promenade. And now you're in my arms, one kiss away. And it danced just perfectly. And they said, oh, but you don't have near enough timing in there to go with it. I said, then don't use it. But I promise you it will work. Yeah, Paul?
Somebody in the late 70s, early 80s analyzed 70, 80, 200 records been produced. And maybe 5%, 64 beats for a sinking call. They ranged from somewhere around 55 to 75 steps needed to get through the singing call.
Relative to what Randy said about that dancer saying, we're not dead, call faster. As I said, that tempo workshop that we did, my conclusion was it's all what the perception of the dancer is. You can call slowly, you can call more quickly, but depending on how you deliver it and the type of music, it's all in the perception of the dancer. And you can compensate.
Accuracy of execution. Familiarity of the material. If they're very familiar with it, they're very familiar with every call, they do it really well. If they're not familiar with it, they don't do it very well. It looks funny. Adequacy of training. Very important. Very important. Space availability. If you got one square up here in this area, they're going to spread out. It's just automatic. If you got them jammed up real close together, don't call sides, face, grand, square.
Don't be the other one.
Saw a caller do that at one of our local festivals that was hired to come in to do our festival, and the floor was jammed on the first tip. I mean, really jammed. His singing call was sides, face, grand. You never saw such a mess in your life. They were mixed in squares and going across in the other one and back and forth, and it just simply didn't work.
Is that where our interlocked squares symbol came from?
Yeah. It was a good way to look at it. Space availability is very important. Kinesiology. So many of us don't pay any attention to kinesiology. If you remember a name of a lady caller, Gloria Roth, from up in Nova Scotia, she was a kinesiology major. And boy, if she didn't hammer on us about things that body flow and body position and body mechanics. She was on most of us callers all the time about how we messed it up. Body movement, which way we go, body relationships, call design. And the worst call that we have for kinesiology is square through. It don't fit the body movement of anybody because it's just the way it's written. It's just not. And we have to train our dancers to get accustomed to how it's done. And but the timing of the square through from a static square, it should take 10 beats to do it. We count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. But little by little, they will get to where they can do it. If you're in a closer together situation, it takes only 8 beats to do it, and we have to teach that and work on it, where timing is so important going both ways. Callers can change the timing and the attitude of the dancer during a dance and as they go along. Like Don says, talking about the man that could only dance every other tip, but by the time the dance was over with, he had adjusted to Don's timing, and it was better for him. And we used to have a situation years ago, caller Ed Gilmore, who's from California, full-time traveling caller, had a slower tempo than most other callers. Very precise timing. You could dance a whole evening to him, just like Don was talking about a while ago, and you wouldn't be worn out and too tired. Next week, Les Gocher came through. Les Gocher was the guy who invented sight calling. He did clip timing. He was a faster tempo, and if you stayed up with him an entire evening, you were kind of tired when it was over with. But the difference between them was a mile apart. And I decided in my very early calling career, about halfway between each one of them would be just about right. And I think I've based my timing on that ever since. I need 4 men up here, please. 4 dancer men today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I got 3. I need 1 more man. Make
You
a
want
square.
real men?
Make a square.
You want a real man?
Because we've got 4 specific ladies to fill in the square that we asked to come help us out, and we appreciate it. Sure. All right. Very good. Don, would you play some music for me, please?
Yeah.
I'm going to stack a couple of calls after a while, but you do them like you're supposed to do.
Yes, sir.
For what it's worth, I do not have adjustable tempo on this. These are timed.
That's okay.
These are timed to be 124 if you want to watch and see
That's
how
fine.
it is.
124, 125 is usually about where I run.
Harder. Harder. Faster. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Put the beat along. Yeah, find it.
You can't believe how many times I wish we were still using vinyl.
Me too.
Dance forward, back you go. Circle to the left. Ollie man left. Promenade. Heads, square through 4. Do-si-do. Swing through. Swing through. Recycle. Reverse flutter wheel. Alley man left. Square you sit. Sides, right and left through, and the ladies chain. And the heads do the same. Circle up. Corner swing. Promenade. Boy, they dance well, don't they? Isn't it pretty to watch them dance? Heads right and left through. Pass the ocean, extend, and recycle. And veer left and couple circulate. And Ferris wheel. And double pass through. And stop and square your set. Go wherever you need to get it to. It don't make no difference how good they are. The caller can screw it up. with bad timing, right?
Yeah.
Four-lead his chain. Roll away. Circle up. Alley man left, Alamo style. Right to your partner, balance. Swing through. Take time to balance forward and back and swing through. Take time to balance forward and back and do a left swing through. Double. Alley man left. Pass by one. Swing the next. And you should be right at home. That's how you can change it to make it look these dancers, they were so very good and I made them look awful. That's not their fault. Alley man left. Alamo style, the right to your partner in balance. Swing through. Balance. Swing through. And a right and left ground. And it should be, oh. A caller told me that not long ago that they went to a dance of a caller calling and they danced about half of it and they finally gave up and quit dancing. But the other dancers kept on going because he resolved to home the same exact way on every pattern routine. Side, the band died.
Got the band?
Sides, slide through. This was the formation he had them in every time. Square through two and courtesy turn.
Should be a left, yeah.
What, did I hear some noise? What was it, louder? Gloria Roth taught her people every time the caller would call something like that, say, ouch!
Ouch.
Head slide through. Square through two. Courtesy turn. Can you imagine ending every pattern routine that way?
I liked it when they did it.
That's why we have open carry law in Texas. Don't do that. It's not there in any regard. Side slide through twice. Pass through and courtesy turn. Hand availability was there. Heads, step in and face your corner. Touch a quarter. Scoot back. Single hinge. Ladies trade. Swing through. Boy trade. Boy run. Wheel and deal. Pass to the center. Square through two. And courtesy turn. Terrible, in my opinion. Your opinion, Doug?
That's horrible.
Everybody vote horrible? Unanimous. Maybe that caller will get this tape or recording and listen to it. I hope.
I think Mike's got a question.
Mike, yes. Somebody have a question? Please jump in if you have a question or comment anywhere with anything. Don?
Some of the classic problems that people have had over the years is swing through without a stop, spin the top. While they're saying without a stop, dancers have to stop because they should have called spin the top before that. Another one I'm hearing a lot more lately is do-si-do to a wave, swing through. That to a wave tends to, I'm not sure if it's the timing or the way they dance it, but if you call do-si-do swing through, they would dance it smoothly. If you call do-si-do to a wave, swing through, there's a hiccup.
At a regional festival where local callers call the pre-festival dance, I was there, and every local caller that got up to call did this: head square through four. Step to a wave and swing through. Boy run right. Wheel and deal. Step to a wave and centers trade. Swing through. And the boy trade. Boy run right. Wheel and deal. Pass to the center. Step to a wave and swing through. Girls trade. Boy run right. And bend the line and you're at home. They call step to a wave every time before they call swing through. And they did a swing through every time. Don't think I didn't point that out to them in the caller critique session the next day, you know. Frank Lane has said this so many times, you've got to let the dancer graduate eventually. That means the definition states if you're two facing couples and you call swing through, you must step into a momentary ocean wave before you do the call. Read the definition and study it and understand it and know it. The timing and the styling is also part of the definition. You don't just stop at the bottom of the word. You got to pick up the rest of it, Paul.
Appreciating in a demonstration that you zeroed out every single time. But one of the worst dances I ever went to was the guy who was known as being an outstanding dancer challenge. He was calling a plus dance, and he spent half the night trying to figure out whose corner and partners were and where they started. So he had people wandering around every 30 seconds, 45 seconds, so he could zero out at home instead of calling an Alaman left promenade.
Sides, right and left through. Past the ocean. Swing, no, I'm sorry, let me start. Extend. Recycle. Veer left. Partner trade.
Oh, ouch. Ouch.
Hurts, don't it?
Yeah.
That's one of them hurts donuts. You know? Couples circulate and tag the line. Yeah. But watch it, okay? Leaders trade. Touch a quarter. Boy trade. Boy run right. Partner trade. Couples circulate and tag the line. See how far ahead I was for them to get there? Leaders trade. Touch a quarter. Boys trade. Boys run and partner trade. I'm trying to fix it so Doug can get lots of experience from that position that he's in, okay? But, okay, couples circulate. Circulate again. Tag the line. If you wait too long, it doesn't feel good to do that. Leaders trade. Touch a quarter. Boys trade. Boys run. Partner trade. Couples circulate and left tag the line.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
See the difference? Much easier and body flow and mechanical wise, and they don't throw rocks at you if you do things of that nature. John, do you have anything, any caller, you want to give us some help or something? You want to say something? Please.
Okay.
Spur yourself.
Nikki Hensley, New York, California. Going back to the timing and also what you said, John, about it didn't matter if they were good dancers. Because if you're if you've got a floor, everybody's got different abilities. And so our timing, we could be going by the timing chart for doing the best we can. And you're going to have some that the body flow is great, the flowing is great, and you're going to have others that are going to be behind, and you're going to have some that are going to be maybe a beat ahead. That's the confusing part for me.
Okay, I'm going to graduate you to plus. Here's the number. 4 ladies chain across the room, turn a little girl with a ring-a-ding-ding. Chain them back across the track, turn the girl and they don't look back. Head lady center for a teacup chain. change. Signs to the headman, turn this chain. Head leads to the center and star of the round and turn in the quarter with the little finger out. Head leads to the center and a half a bit more. Turn in the quarter in the middle of the floor. Head leads to the center for a 3/4 chain, and here she comes, let's turn your chain, and when you get done, you ought to be done by now. If I have dancers that are slow on that and I want to use it in a singing call, I will say that. You should be home by now because they've been dragging around just a little bit too much. And I will do it a couple of times in a pattern before I use it in a singing call. Because if they're slow doing it and you put it in a singing call, they're not going to be done by the time you're ready to call the next call, and you better change your tempo or change your timing on your call. Doug?
Well, part of the problem on this floor is carpeting slows us down.
Very, very difficult to dance on. Right now I've got on neoprene sole boots and I can't slide on this floor to save my life. And Brad's got on tennis shoes that won't work, but they make little slip over things that go over those shoes that a lot of our dancers at home are wearing tennis shoes and they get those cloth slippers to go over the front part of the shoe, and they're able to dance with that. On carpet, you need leather sole shoes to dance on carpet. It's very, very difficult, and that's all we've got here in the hotel.
I mentioned slippery floor. This is an anti-slippery floor.
Hey, how about a nice hand for our dancers, would you please? Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you!
And that's another thing. I'm glad that the dancers applauded at the end of that. You cannot believe when we have a guest caller. The club that Deborah is the club caller for on the north side of Dallas, having really good dancers in the club, and she has built that club like you wouldn't believe. And guest callers come and call, and they say, we got the greatest response from the dancers that we have ever had. Applause at the end of the tip for the caller. Applause at the end of the round for the cuer. We emphasize it and stress it and promote it like crazy. And it makes a really big difference. I'll tell you a story because he's sitting here in the room and he's smiling because he knows what I'm going to say. We were at a town in a different state, Deborah and I were, and we encouraged the people to applaud at the end of the tip. We kept on getting them to do it that way, and they really responded, and it was a great feeling. A month later, Randy Doherty was in the same town calling for the same club. We were using records still at that time. He called the first tip, and he's turned around and messed with his records and everything, and the dancers are still applauding. So, he called the second tip, still wasn't paying too much attention, and the dancers are still applauding. He said, golly, they must like this, don't they? He called the third tip, and they was really good, and he said, wow, y'all are really great. Your enthusiasm is great, and I appreciate the applause. And they told him, Jon Jones told us we better applaud when you came into town. And I told him, I said, you do that and Randy will have his eyes bugged out this big. It's a great feeling, I guarantee. Teach your dancers to applaud at the end of the tip. It's not that difficult to do, and they will respond to you. Thank you very much.
Let's have another big hand for Jon Jones.